Welcome to the Gym Mastery Podcast. I'm your host, Scott Ramage, and my guest on this episode is Tyler Sullivan. Tyler owns Badger CrossFit. He has owned that affiliate for 9.5 years. Family is a huge part of Tyler's life. And one of the most intriguing things that I know about him is that he just recently bought a hobby farm. Welcome to the show, Tyler. How you doing, man?
I'm doing really well. Really good. Thanks, man, for having me.
I've been wanting to have you on the show for a while, but when I saw you bought a farm, I'm like, I have got to get Tyler on like now. So we'll get to that.
Okay.
How's life in the gym business right now as we're still amongst COVID and we're amongst a lot of challenges as business owners? How are you doing?
I mean, I will say we're still very blessed. I mean, to be able to continually, we've been open since May and we've been able to do things the right way, safely. My staff and my coaches have been phenomenal with just us managing the people and their expectations and, the safety and the, concerns that people have. And we've done really good. And we're just happy to be open, right? We understand everyone's going to have kind of that big punch to the gut moment right now. And we're just, can we weather this storm? And we know that we can. We haven't had to reduce salaries or lay anybody off. So it's been really good. And I guess in the long run, being a little bit larger gym, we've had some buffer room there. So I mean, obviously not ideal to be a gym owner in this moment, but everybody is in the same boat, so to speak.
Yeah, that's true. I just read an article this morning, or maybe it was someone's comment on they're writing something about Facebook and trying to get government assistance across the board, because one of the hardest, I would think, outside of restaurants, one of the hardest businesses or industries hit has been fitness facilities, which is so ironic. I mean, it's straight out of the Alanis Morissette song. I mean, but
Totally.
yeah, it's been really rough. And first, I want to go back to the very beginning of COVID, because I watch our gym owners closely that are a part of the Level Method, and you replaced the entire floor or most of the floor in your gym first round. Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah, actually. So we operate out of like I don't know if it was in the 1930s. It's your classic Milwaukee style warehouse. It was a manufacturing facility, and the floor was really, really beat up in my gym. And I mean, more so than just bumps in the floor. I mean, we're talking like divots and huge. We had railroad tracks running through our gym, and all the blacktop and the stuff was actually like all broken up, and it was just a miserable experience. And so I decided, what better time than COVID to finally repair all of that. So we did the entire like 9,000 square feet of the one section of our gym, because we would have had to shut down the gym for 2 weeks or a week, anyway, even if it wasn't COVID.
It's always interesting to watch how people respond to situations. This situation happened to not really be good for anybody. However, I did see certain gyms take it as an opportunity. And I thought, I mean, you kind of told the story on your social media, and I thought it was incredible. I'm like, that's what you do when you're faced with, forced shutdown. How do I make this an incredible experience? And this is how. So have you regretted that decision? Because I'm sure that was a pretty big financial implication. How was that?
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate it. I think it was, in a moment of kind of what I was thinking in that moment, we were all kind of just wondering what's up, what's next, and I think there's a kind of a twofold approach of what I took there. Number one is I'm getting through this, right? There is an end point to this. This is not going to be a forever thing. And I have the confidence in this business and the people of America in general, right? That we will be able to manage this, get through this problem. And it was more of a display. I think number one is I wanted to show that we are going to come back, right? This isn't something where people had to worry, is Badger going to survive? Or am I going to be here again? I think people liked that. They wanted to have that feeling of hope. They wanted to have like, I have something I can look forward to, And when in that moment it was in the middle of April, or the first week of April, it felt like everybody was in you know, what are we going to do? You know, I don't know what's next. So that was one major reason why I did it. Number two, of course, is just the feasibility. It was easier for me to do it when everybody was not in the gym, you know, from a logistics standpoint. That was obviously another reason. But yeah, the other one was we ended up getting a new building owner in my gym who really understood the story we're trying to do here and try to really see kind of what we're about. And you know, I've been able to work with him on some other things, and it allowed me to be able to be freed up with some capital to make some investments. You know, throughout COVID, he helped me with rent abatement and just being able to, you know, push that off. And he just basically gave me some free rent while I could still manage some of these costs. And he's been a splendid guy to a company, I should say, to work for. And I've been very blessed to have that. So those are probably the primary reasons why I decided.
Yeah. I think you brought up something that some people missed in this opportunity with being forced to be shut down, is being someone who could provide vision for people. When they're kind of broke into a place where they're feeling broken and maybe they are not sure what's going on in their own lives. And then to be able to look and say, hey, look, my gym, the gym owner, the guy running the something that is a big part of my life has vision. And you had this picture that you posted of you, like, I think you had arms out and it's like the entire place.
Yeah.
And it was like, I'm going to cast my vision of the future here, and it's good. So that was incredible. So you don't just land on an opportunity like that unless you've done some things. You've learned some lessons over time, and you've done some things over time that have been good decisions. I'm sure you've made some pretty horrible decisions in your business.
Absolutely. Tons of them.
How did you get started in the fitness industry? I mean, 9.5 years, running into 10 years this year.
Yeah. Well, you know, pretty prototypical CrossFit like story of obviously finding it, the whole deal, right? And I was in IT. I did IT security, IT networking, IT like system design, you name it. I was really large into IT. That's what I went to school for originally. But you know, it's just one of those things that it wasn't fulfilling. I was good at it. It provided a paycheck, and I just didn't have the desire to continue that forward to just provide for my family, right? I knew that there was more to my life, and I wanted to be able to see an impact. I wanted to be able to create an impact for people, and or at least provide an avenue in which I could actually be an impact. So I, you know, 2010, I decided I was going to start this business, and it took me about a year to kind of get it off the ground and just, you know, all the numbers and the finances and the, you know, the making sure my family obviously was I had a, you know, 1-year-old or 6-month-old son. So I had to manage that. And, you know, just being a dad, and we really had to have some serious heart to hearts with my wife to be able to make that happen. But yeah, 2011, I decided to go for it. I was still working full time, and I did the gym thing, you know, before work and after work.
Oh, wow.
And, you know, I did that for about 8 months. And then ironically on Leap Day, 2012, I quit my job, leaped from it, and decided to go all in on Badger. And, you know, it was at that moment where I realized, you know, if I'm going to do this, I have to do this the right way. It was draining me doing both things at the same time. So
heck yeah,
my family, especially my family, took the beating of that. And, you know, there's quite a few things even today I'm just regret significantly of just the time management, the demand of the position, the demand of myself as a gym owner, manager, coach, my own athletic endeavors of the CrossFit Games regionals, and then of course being a dad and a husband. So it was a very big challenge, but I think at that point is the crux of like when it started to take off and really started to make a huge shift in our lives.
Yeah. So that decision to, you know, walk away from a consistent paycheck,
yep,
and what you know, general Americans would call security, you know, a secure job,
sure,
was scary. How long did it take you, or did you ever come to the point where like that was the right decision? I mean, you kind of sound like you already know that, but how long did it take for you to really kind of download, this is okay, it's going to be okay?
Yeah, I mean, it was that moment. I mean, that's why I had the job to begin with, and I did it as a kind of a part-time thing because I didn't know. It was, I wanted to, as a father especially, I feel as a huge responsibility for myself to provide, not just the financial sense, but, you know, many other things. But it was a huge thing for me financially at the moment because my wife stopped working when we had our children, and it was even more of a thing for us. But I decided to just keep that job until that leap day. So it was really when on leap day 2012, when I actually quit my job, that I was like, I am for sure ready to do this. This is going to work.
Yeah. So you knew you were ready when you took the leap, you were ready.
And I was so excited. Yeah, it was ready. It was that moment of clarity for me.
Yeah. One thing I admire about you, and I admire something that I really pay attention to with people is how they live their life as a as a family person. So you know, or their relationships outside of the gym, which are so incredibly important, and I think is generally overlooked and underappreciated or under focused on thing in a lot of business owners. So how have you found that balance? What are some of the things that have created success? I mean, I would say when I see you talk about your wife, and I'm looking through the lens of social media, or of course, and then when I see your wife talking about you, it's it's a model of what we want to see. There's an adoration and like a unity and a like you're on the same path. It's really refreshing. What are some of the keys to owning a business, a large business? We'll talk about that later, but owning a business and having a successful marriage and, you know, parenting kids.
Yeah. I mean, first, thank you. We really try hard, you know, we've had many, many dark days and many dark years for that matter. And, you know, I do believe there's a huge testament to what my wife and I have gone through is, I mean, we're technically high school sweethearts. I met her when I was a sophomore in high school, and she was a senior. And, you know, just immediately it was just battle after battle. I mean, it was high school, right? I mean, there's so much that's happening there. And she moved on to college and I was still in high school. And even in that in itself, like major issues there. And, you know, we've taken some breaks in between, so to speak, but it's always been, you know, the trials for us. Immediately we had trials, and, you know, my wife and I talk about this, we look back on those things and it's just like, we can't believe we even hung on at some time, you know, like
Right.
we look back and it's like, I can't believe, I mean, today I feel like I would give up. Part of it was just, you know, I think just the inability to foresee just certain things. I just think being young, you don't know a lot, but I do feel that as we've battled and weathered so many things and stages together, especially in this business the last 10 years, which have been very difficult, I will say, we've always tried to maintain a focus of friendship and best friend mentality towards each other. Consistent date nights, you know, hanging out as friends, laughing, dancing, and really just trying to put a focus on ourselves as much as possible. You know, and I will say there's been, like like the stock market, right? In general, there's ups and downs, but
Absolutely.
the general trend has been upwards.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's really worked on, it's worked out, of course. And, you know, for myself, she is the mother to my wonderful children. And I feel as a man, especially I have just a innate desire to provide for her in all aspects, emotionally, mentally, physically, everything.
So there's, I think balance is a misbelief, or it's not a real thing. I think if you're striving for balance, like a true 50-50 balance, it's just not possible. But when owning and operating a business, it is a little bit of like a constant suck on your mind. At least it's always going towards the business. What are some personal things or some things that you've implemented or do to maintain the right mindset so that you can be intentional about your marriage and also intentional about you being a father?
Yeah, I mean, quite honestly, I've really started to take that's funny you use the word balance. That's been one of my kind of key words this second half of the year, especially. You know, even just like right after COVID hit, it was just, everything was about, let's just make sure I save this business, right?
Right.
It was just all like, I want to make sure it's all good, right? And I started to obviously lean a little bit out of balance and really drive into leaning into the business more. And, you know, I immediately heard it from my wife, and I could feel it. My kids started to feel it. You just start to see things pop up when you start losing focus and balance. And, you know, the biggest thing for me is really, and I mean, I personally do have a very hard or difficult time to, I focus sometimes on certain things where I am now in a position where I have a lot of things on my plate. And oftentimes I have so many things that I start to lose the balance, and I start to take my focus away from other things. My coaches and my staff will attest to that, and as well as my wife. But it's been where I've sort of taken the second half of this year as a, let's eliminate any sort of gray areas that perhaps may get or detract away from that balance.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
So you're making some intentional decisions of kind of pulling out some stuff that may not be the best for you and your family. So you have, I mean, in the height, you run about 375 members. How did you, I think a lot of people, some people don't want to be at that number, but there's other people that kind of see that as a holy grail. That's a very large membership for a CrossFit gym. It's up there in the top, I would say probably 5% from what I know, or more. So let's talk about the highs, the lows, and everything in between with having a massive membership.
Absolutely, would love to. So I guess you want me to kind of dive into some of that.
So what? First of all, how were you able to grow that?
You know, I've had a lot of people, you know, over even the beginning of stages of this gym, you know, just there's been a real large sense of just, I feel, and of course I feel, and I know because I've done it, but of really just wanting the best for people, you know, and I really did truly value, it's not just the dollars, obviously, that I want here, you know, I really wanted to make sure that people felt valued, they got what they paid for here. And, you know, you really just want to focus on making sure that experience is exactly what you say it is. And, you know, really, again, I think the word is care, primarily caring in a really true sense of the word. Like, I'm listening to this person and, you know, they have struggles, and I'm listening to them, you know, truly caring about their story and what's happening in their life, versus a surface level coach, you know, and then there's nothing wrong with that. But, you know, I do feel that immediately it separated me right from the get-go. And, you know, CrossFit obviously I think that's a really big thing for most gyms anyway, is the care and the smallness in the community. And that's always been something, I don't think it's too different. But, you know, over time, I think it just started to rub off a lot, and just started to really spread pretty quickly. And not to mention, I will say I hit the perfect timing, not just in CrossFit. 2011 was when it really started to skyrocket. Combine that, though, with a sense of care, and combine that with a sense of actual results and systems that actually make sense. I think it was just the perfect storm of things.
Yeah. Maybe perhaps it was a perfect storm, and I think care is incredibly important. But I mean, a lot of people would have not been able to uphold care when you're talking about over 200, over 300 members. So let's talk a little bit about what it takes to have a gym with that kind of membership. What's the infrastructure? And I mean, how do you balance this machine of, I would assume, a lot of coaches and some management, and what's the structure look like for you?
Yeah, I mean, that's it has its own set of challenges. I do feel that after 150, it's, you know, that Dunbar's number, I believe, right? That's every 50 members after that, I felt was just another set of problems or another set of opportunities.
Yeah,
it just keeps going. It just keeps going. And then we got up to, we were over almost to 450 at one point. But that was a little bit kind of an anomaly, just because we were running special programs, and that was kind of it wasn't meant to be a long-term solution. Anyway, but wow, as soon as we started getting over 350 to 400, it created a really different dynamic here. And at one point, you know, we were at 16 coaches. We had 4 full-time staff. We were running 12 to 14 classes a day. You know, it was pretty much open all day, obviously. And, you know, a lot of the problems that we had, obviously, in that was, of course, controlling quality of the experience, and ensuring that there was that care factor still happening. I will say, I mean, it was right when we implemented level method. I mean, ironically, is when we really started to see a shift of us being able to sort of have a problem of lack of care and quality, to now having people understand this is a little bit more specific to myself, and I can manage a larger gym with individualized sort of programming. Obviously not purely custom, right? But an individualized semi-custom sort of style using level method. And it allowed my coaches to have such a much better experience to be able to show that care factor and show the things that we can do really well. And that was I mean, it was 2018, I think, when I implemented it, and that was the peak. That was when we hit it, and it was after we implemented.
Yeah, I mean, and you, I'm pretty fresh to level method. Level method is pretty fresh itself, and here comes a guy with almost 400 or more than 400 members implementing a system that I'm used to walking a gym that might have 100, and that presents new challenges of itself. And it was pioneering. We were literally pioneering. You were literally pioneering how this looks for a larger gym, and so I'm glad it was a benefit to you. So you said 16 coaches and 4 full-time staff. Yes. So your coaches are involved people, because I quite honestly, there's gyms that have 100 members and they have 16 coaches. And so I see this equation quite frequently with gyms that I would say are crushing it. Is there is a lower amount of staff who are more highly bought in to gym, because 16 at the numbers you have is it would be about equivalent to a gym of 100 members having 4. Okay. So that's a big staff. No mistake, that's a big staff. But that was a question that I wanted to ask, is managing that many people. I mean, you're not only keeping your hands, you're a mayor of a very big town, 400 members, right?
Good way to look at it.
Yeah. Well, we had a guest that said that he wanted to be the mayor of his gym. He wanted to come in, shake hands, kiss babies, and that was his goal, right? And he's been very successful in that. So, having such a big gym, what is your goal? What is your ideal role? Are you in it? What is it?
Yeah, well, great question. I mean, the good thing is we had a full-time staff of, like I said, 4. I was actually, I'm part of that staff, I guess, if you want to consider me full-time. But it was I really relied more on the full-timers versus the part-timers. We could have gotten, I mean, it really was kind of those part-time coaches that were a necessity to ensure that my full-timers obviously continually have a balanced life. Big time, because I don't want my coaches coaching more than 3 hours a day. Like, that's not my thing. So because I know I was that guy. Every class, exhausting. And you can't, number one, you're going to burn yourself out. Number two, why you don't want someone to burn out and be in this job for life, have a career vocation in this and be a person who's constantly burned out or just doesn't look forward to showing up that day. So that was a big part. So the part-timers really did fill in a huge void for us and provided a great avenue. And it had its own unique set of challenges, of course. But I will say though that the staff, I mean, I couldn't have done it without them. There's no question about it. To where we've gotten. But what was the second part of your question? I'm sorry.
Heck, man, I don't remember. It's a great answer. Great answer. Okay. How do you get the right staff? Because I'm sure with a big membership, you're going to have people. I want to be a coach. I want to be a coach. I want to be a coach. You know how it is. I mean, even with my 150, I was getting that. Like, how can I be a coach for you? It's all the time, and I'm like thinking, I don't want you to be a coach for me, or that would be amazing. So I'm sure you get that a lot. How do you get the right people in the right seats?
Great question. Every single person that I've found has, except one person, but has been always from within, or whom I've known for either some time or sort of has been inside this culture right away. And, I see it as like, it's sort of a in-house sort of system where the people understand the culture, they understand me, they understand they're coming from a place of wanting to help, right? They've seen the transformation in themselves and they want to help others feel that same thing. And everybody that I've had has always had that mindset. A couple people probably not, but back in the early days, it was more of like, hey, what can I just need a body there to help me out so I don't like get a divorce.
Yeah.
It's right. I need help, and they're more of a body, and that those people phased out. It just didn't work out culturally anymore. But I will say the people that have shown themselves to be the best coaches here are the ones that come from a teacher's heart. They have a teacher's heart.
Yeah. So just finding the people that have the right motives and coming from within. You talk about culture. So can you have a culture, a very, very defined culture inside such a large gym where there's so much disconnect between members that may never see each other?
Good question. I feel it's kind of different. I've been a part of a gym that has less than 50 members, like when I first started CrossFit. And I've been to gyms and I drop into them, the small ones. There's a totally unique set of culture when it comes to gyms that are different sizes. And, being such a large culture, I feel that each class is its own culture. It starts to become where there's the 5 a.m. even has its own, the class itself has a specific culture. The 6 a.m. even does, 7 a.m. And you start to see the dynamic of all the personalities kind of come together. And it's just, then you have AM groups, then you have like a PM group. And it sort of takes, rather than thinking of it as a whole necessarily of the people, it's more of the specific times that I see it a little bit more of in a larger gym. But I do feel the general kind of ethos within an organization does come from the top. It's what are we saying to our members? How are we talking to them? What are we telling them on our content and our social media? What are we explaining to them inside of the class? When I tell them every coach needs to say these certain things, it's either a yes or a no. You said this, okay, this is the message we're trying to achieve here. And, that in and of itself, I think starts to sort of have an umbrella over the entire mini cultures. Does that make sense?
It does.
Yeah. And I end up finding that, in general, we can steer the ship pretty well because of that. And of course, we're going to have different groups that all have different little like cultures. I wouldn't call them cliques because they're too large. But I would say it's still an idea that we can still sort of manage this gym properly without destroying the entirety of all of it.
Yeah, I think you hit a few key things, and I want to make sure I'm understanding these correct.
Okay.
It sounds to me like you demand or create an environment where consistency is really important across classes, even though they have their own culture. Mm-hmm. Would you say that's true?
That is true.
Okay. So could a 9 a.m. coach succeed in a 5 p.m. class at Badger?
Could a 9 a.m. coach do a what? I'm sorry?
Succeed as a good coach at a 5 p.m. class at Badger?
Caveat being just the ability to handle larger groups. Let's just
different sizes.
Okay. Different sizes. Yeah. I mean, the message is the exact same. We have some coaches that are better at managing larger herds, so to speak. And then we have some coaches that are a lot better in a smaller group setting. And it's, of course, knowing the strengths and weaknesses of each coach and their comfort level. And also just the expectation of that hour. I think that each hour has its own sort of unique expectations because, my 5 a.m., for example, which is the first class of the day, is always capped. We always reach full capacity every single time. And, so the coaches that coach that class are going to have to understand that this class is not going to be hey, I can just sip my coffee here. No, you're working, you're sweating, you're doing the thing because there's a lot to do. And then it's just, some coaches are in for that. Some of them aren't. And you just got to make sure that that's the case. But yeah, I'd say it's key. It's definitely key to manage.
Well, the fact that you're bringing up that there's certain coaches that belong in certain classes just simply because of the logistics and the way that their personality, I think that's a key point is, again, putting the right people in the right seats. A coach isn't just a coach. There's coaches that have strength and weaknesses. Would you think that, would you go as far as saying that your consistency in your messaging, you're going to cover this, this, and this in every class, has been a big part in growth.
Absolutely. I've always said that, if I'm coming, I used to say this in the early days, if Greg Glasson or Dave Castro would walk into the gym at 5 a.m. and then you'd have him come again at the night, it should feel exactly the same, right? If I can't have a consistent service, I can't manage it. I can't say that it was a good thing, or I can't say that it was a good class, right? When there's some days you just feel like, oh, that was a great class. Everything just banging on all cylinders. Everybody felt good. The energy was high. The coach was happy, and it just, it ran really well. And it's like, how do you put your finger on that? The only way to be able to do that is to have consistency.
Yeah.
And, so that's been a big part of it. It's just like when you go to McDonald's and, down in Texas, and I go to McDonald's up in Idaho, it's going to taste the same.
Yeah. Yeah. And people value that consistency. I try to tell people that if a member goes to a gym and gets a different product at one class and they get on another class, that's a big problem, unless they're specifically picking a different class type. But yeah. So let's dive into level method a little bit, because you did mention that.
Absolutely.
Some would say that being the pioneer of pulling level method into such a big gym was crazy. I didn't tell you at the time, but I'm one of those people. I'm like, this guy's nuts. I mean, it's going to be awesome if it works, but it's going to be.
I sensed it. I was like, okay, here we go. I'm excited, but I don't think it. Yeah. I don't know if it's going to work. Yeah.
Yeah. I could say that now, because we're a couple of years in.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally.
But it was new ground for me, and definitely new ground for you. So, what influenced you to go ahead? I mean, are you always kind of like a forger of new things, or you're taking on new things, or?
Good question. Yes. I feel that's one of my biggest strengths, is sort of seeing problems, or foreseeing certain problems, but also foreseeing the solution. And I'm willing to try new things to be able to make that happen. And, I don't really have any reservations. Sometimes I don't care if there's an unproven system, when I can see sort of the end point of what I think it could do for us. So I do feel I have some of that strength. Maybe it's just guts. I don't know.
Yeah.
But it was a game changer, for us. And it came with a unique set of challenges. There's no question. There is so much that it did for us in a good way. And, there's certain things too that I felt that it exposed, in the sense that I don't have all this together. There's a lot of things in this, no gray areas, right? So again, eliminating gray areas especially was a big thing. And, I found that level method sort of said, all right, I'm already having a hard time. Let's just say 30 people in a class, per coach. I don't know if that was the case necessarily, but that sometimes did happen. And it was very difficult for us to be able to say, was this a consistent class? Was this a good class? When sometimes you're not able to purposely go to each individual and make sort of, the individualized modifications as needed. And by having sort of a system in which everybody has a certain ability or capability, right? And I can now say, I want you to follow along with this, right? I can now, as a coach or, purveyor of fitness, say, I can manage those specific individuals a lot more effectively. And because of that experience, I could develop more consistency. And each class felt better. It exposed a lot of people. It exposed a lot of people's egos, I will say. We lost quite a few people because they didn't want to be met with those challenges head on. They weren't happy with where they're at. And ultimately we were telling them, well, this is where you are. You just told us this. And, we've had to have those conversations. And, they leave for other gyms, and that's fine. But it did allow us to, it exposed the whole of, we weren't really meeting their needs, right? Even though, like, we were just saying, here's the workout, here's your thing, right? Do the thing. We weren't really interested as much into their journey as we were now with the level method. So it said before we did it that we were just, coasting through. Now we had more of a specific plan. Oh, and awesome. Those athletes now ultimately, appreciate that.
Yeah. It is typical, more typical back then to be met with resistance because of that exposure. And I will honestly say that working with you and your gym, it's multiplied because you have a lot more numbers. Like, one person at a gym of 50 people, that's exacerbated at a gym of 400 plus people. And
Mm-hmm.
it's felt financially, it's felt within your soul. Would you say that overall though, even though losses are hard, it's been better, or do you feel
Oh,
like, okay.
oh yeah. I mean, I, I consider that like a non like P&L win, right? Our culture's improved. The types of people that are in that believe in the product and service delivery that we have are much greater. There's a lot more buy-in. The culture has shifted from sort of a negative kind of ish culture to a more positive vibe. It's been that is what you would say is like a non-financial win, and it quite honestly is a lot more fun to be around the gym because of it.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Speaking of fun, I have to get this in the time, because
I know what you're saying.
I am I'm looking from the outside going,
Okay.
yeah, that's a stellar move. Like, I could totally see doing that. You bought a hobby farm. And when I saw the pictures of your farm, and I don't know if this is where you thought I was going, but this is where I'm going. I saw these pictures of farm. I saw there's going to be an incredible home gym. There's a ton of room outside for your kids to play. You're going to get your hands dirty and learn new things, and you're going to really meld as a family. What was the reason you guys bought a hobby farm? There's silos and everything. I believe there's silos there.
I mean, I got a full. There was a working dairy farm underneath the barn as well, so it was like legit.
Yeah.
I mean, quite a few reasons, but I would say the first thing is, I don't know, like for me, my wife and I especially, like we've always sort of wanted especially when we had kids. It's been every 10 years, I will say, that I always have to try and look for something unique in my life. I'm not saying like business or career or anything. I'm just saying something that has to be kind of significant. And this was kind of that moment. Obviously, we had my son is 10, so that was a huge shift, right? And then now it's 10 years later, and we wanted to make another shift. And it feels like it's always every 10 years it happens. But my wife and I, especially during COVID, we talked about it, where it's like, what is a life that we wanting to give our children? And we only have them, they're 8 and 10 years old right now, and we only have them at this age once. And what is the life that we would have kind of loved to have a little bit? And then what can we do as parents to make that happen for them? And over COVID, my wife and I were really talking about possibly just, hey, what if there was like a hobby farm or a country home or anything like that, like would we consider it? And we decided that we would. Not that we were unhappy with where we were at, but again, focusing on what we wanted to do for our children at that moment. So we decided to, Labor Day weekend, we found the house, and we went to look at it the next day, and it kind of hit all the cylinders of what we're looking for, price, location, and sort of the lifestyle that we're looking for. And we made the offer. And it's a funny story, Scott. As soon as we made the offer, it was that day, and we formally submitted it. And I called my realtor that afternoon, and I told her, I said, I want to withdraw my offer, because I was freaking out. I was like, what am I doing? It was super scary. And she's like, less than 30 seconds ago, he accepted your offer, so it's binding, right? And I'm like, holy crap. And I'm like, and for me, I was like freaking out a little bit, but then I realized how, like 30 seconds earlier, I think this was meant to be.
Yeah.
It's the confirmation. And I'm, it's as scary as it was, it's obviously, it's so exciting. And yeah, now we moved in 2 weeks ago.
Yeah. Super, super cool. Probably, actually I'm gonna go out there and say it's the coolest home gym I've ever seen. Because it's in, it must be in part of the barn.
Yeah.
But I was like, oh my God, it's so incredible. Like, I mean, people will just have to look themselves. It's very cool. But then I also saw like the entrepreneurial side of you come out already. And I'm like, oh, he's using all this. He's capitalizing on the space on his property. So was that a plan ahead of time to rent out storage space for RVs, boats, whatever the case may be?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. It was immediately I wanted to turn it into something that I've always, again, wanted to be able to help others with, and create a life for people. And I realized that I have all this extra room, and I'm not going to necessarily use any of it this year because I'm still trying to bury holes and setting up a room. And I had 5 to 7 people, I think, reach out to me asking.
Wow.
Some of them already took, yeah. So it's great. I mean, so having a kind of a monthly space for them to store their boat trailers or RVs and things. That's something that we're going to do right away.
That's really, really cool.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of gym owners are if they're like me from where I was when I owned a gym, is how do you get to a place where you are barely making it to where you get to buy a hobby farm? If you were kind of nailed down like one or two key things that would relate to your success, just one or two. I know there's a ton of them because it's a lot of decisions, but what are one or two things, key things that have made you successful as a business owner?
Good question. I mean, there's so many things. I guess, are you kind of looking at it from a like purely a business sense, or are you saying from a financial sense, or are you saying from a like personal sense?
Yes.
Oh,
I'm
great,
giving
great.
you a wide open, like, okay, let's do this. What's one personal practice or thing that you believe helps you personally be a successful person?
I will say this is probably the thing that has ensured that we have been able to do these sort of things for our entire life. And we follow since 2003. We've been following. Have you ever heard of Dave Ramsey?
Oh, heck yeah. Yeah.
The Total Money Makeover. And that has been where immediately after I got out of college, my wife got out of college, and then I graduated as well, where we started to take a huge responsibility on ourselves to live like broke people for the rest of our, as long as possible. Where, as we lived on as little means as possible to be able to, provide certain things, to be able to make an investment into a home. Has always been the case for us. And I do feel that just the way that we sort of operate that way, even today, has significantly been able to open up opportunities like never before, including in my business, because I don't operate with debt in this business. I never have. And it has the exact same sort of plan as I did on the personal side. So not only is my business financially secure in the sense that I can ensure that we can pay our people for a long time and we can continue to do those things, that even it's provided more opportunities than I ever thought. And that's, I think, one of the major reasons.
Yeah.
Because we're not I know gyms that gross a lot more than us. I do. But it's all really what you do with it and how well you can live on it and manage it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that would be one of the main ones, I would say. So, and you asked for 2, right?
Sure. That's a big one. That's a really big.
That would be like one of the biggest game changers for us. I will say that's sort of our motto as well. I don't know if you do follow Dave.
Yeah.
So one of his mottos is live like no one else.
Right.
So later you can live like no one else.
Exactly.
Right. And that's sort of my wife and I's sort of axiom towards life as well.
So you make sacrifices now, so later, and I think people would say that buying a hobby farm is a later thing. And knowing the Dave Ramsey way, knowing the practices and the way that works, there is an absolute path to being able to buy something like that, so that it's not a burden. It's just not a burden.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yep. And then the last 5 years have been great in the sense of the appreciation in our market as well. We wouldn't have been able to do it if we really had that appreciation of just the general market for us. And that did obviously fulfill the dream even further.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. So one more thing that you would say to a gym owner, hey, if you don't have this in place, you need to do this, or a business owner.
Mm-hmm. It sounds very, very commonplace, I feel, but it just really have the right people in the right places in your business. I mean, the people that because I am not this gym, right? that my employees, my coaches, they're the faces of the business. You know, when they meet people at the door, they don't know that Tyler owns the gym, right? They think that this is the person, right? And that is huge for me. It's always been that way, where I do feel that that has a huge contributor to the overall success and vision and mission that you've set forth for it, because they're going to be the ones who fulfill it.
Yeah. That is a comment. I just want to put a pin in that one, because that is a common response from the gym owners that I would call a master gym owner. That's a common response is find the right people. And it doesn't matter if they elevate ahead of you or they're seen as like the person in charge. It doesn't matter. Like what matters is that they're the right people doing the right things, and they're growing.
Yes.
That's incredible. Well, man, I want to wrap up with that, because I feel like we just dropped two massive gold nuggets for anybody listening. And so I really appreciate your time. I know you're a busy guy, but I really appreciate your time.
Thank you so much, Scott. Appreciate your time.
And listeners, thank you so much for listening to the Gym Mastery Podcast, where we interview incredible people, and we focus in on the area of gym ownership, gym owners, and the fitness business with people like Tyler Sullivan. And if you are interested in growing your mind around improving your business and your personal life, this is the podcast for you. Of course, I have a bend towards Level Method, so you can always check that out at www.levelmethod.com. And if you're in the Badger CrossFit area, or you don't know where that is, check out the show notes. Have the links to his gym locations and everything else around that. And you definitely got to go experience the really straight and beautiful floors there. And hit the subscribe button and have a great day.